Thanks for staying on the Joy News channel. Right now, we are crossing over to the town hall meeting being organized by government to engage the public on the e-levy.
Clergy, the Honorable Minister responsible for Finance, the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, and Member of Parliament for Ofuase Ayerebi, the Honorable Deputy Majority Leader, the Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin, and Member of Parliament for Efutu, the Honorable Deputy Minister responsible for Communications, the Honorable Ama Omar, and Member of Parliament for Jabin Constituency, the Honorable Member of Parliament for New Jabin South and Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Honorable Michael Ochibefi, the Honorable Nana Kwesi Ejei Boating, Member of Parliament for New Jabin North, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Achim-Swedru, the Honorable Ken Osei-Nyako, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Oda, the Honorable Alexander Akwesi Akwa. There are too many MPs here, I'm getting loose. I want to welcome our members of academia who are here with us. I welcome our distinguished professionals who have all been extended a hand of invitation for this important meeting for on behalf of government, as has been eloquently described by my good brother, the Minister of Information. My business is just to ensure that this meeting happening in the regional capital of the Eastern region, the pride of Ghana, happens without any shred of accident. And it ends peacefully, and we take this beautiful policy of government progressively. On behalf of the chiefs and people of the Eastern region, I humbly welcome each and every person within this hall to this beautiful meeting. Enuanom asofonom ene akyerɛkyerɛfoɔ ne amanyɔ mpanyinfoɔ a wo a mebɔ odin a wo ama ma odin fa kyɛ me. Deɛ wɔ mu ne sɛ ɛnnɛ dwumadie ɛyɛ dwumadie a yɛde boa aban ani so ade hunu ne aban hyehyɛeɛ. Minia onmonyamfoɔ Kwadwo Ɔpɔn Nkrumah ɛdi kan ato din ama yɛn nyinaa yɛ hunu. Asɛdeɛ ne sɛ megyina apue mantem ahempɔn ɛne ɔnemanfoɔ anamu na mama yɛn nyinaa akɔ aba ɛwɔ ekuro pɔn Koforidua mu. Dwumadie no ahyɛseɛ nie ma yɛn nyinaa akɔ aba. Nyame nhyira yɛn na ɔma dwumadie no nkɔ awieyɛ pɛpɛɛpɛ ma yɛn.
Honorable Minister, there was some Honorable Regional Minister, the Honorable Seth Echampong. Penifo a shower, I say, Mammy break a crack, na mean yim penifo ka crabby a waha eddy, and Chiremunina, na yimfi yen common. Edin kind, the Deputy Majority Leader, and over Parliament, Dom Kessia or Parliament, Openia Udi and Nimna Trade, the Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin, Memphans and Bokesia in Shiano. Oka mpenimfomi ensa ene ebe kasa ene ewie yi ho ono aso no member of Parliament for Efutu. The Honorable Minister for Communications, the Honorable Esla Owusu Ekofo, the Minister responsible for Finance, the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, Member of Parliament for Achim-Swedru, Honorable Ken Osei-Nyako, The Honorable Kwesi Ejay Boateng MP, New Joabin North, Yemfa Nsem Kesiye, Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. The Honorable Michael Tribefi, Member of Parliament, New Joabin South, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. The Member of Parliament for Joabin, the Honorable Amma Poma, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Member of Parliament Akim Odan, the Honorable Akwesi Akwa, Mumi Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Member of Parliament Achiaso, the Honorable Kofi Mafo, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Kofi Wai? Kofi Wai, I say chairman. The Honorable Kofi Ochre Ejekum, your friend Arafat, Honorable Member for Fantiakwa South, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. A number of MMDCs, the Honorable Kwabena Penning, Nkansa, Etiwa East, Honorable Mayehu na Yemonse Mao, Honorable Simon Kweku Tete, Lower Manya Krobo, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Honorable Akosua Sabia Ano, Ebuakwa South, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. The Honorable Seth Brickrine Denchembo, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. The Honorable Joe Sam Apa Menya Krobo, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Honorable Margaret Darkon, Suhum Municipal, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Honorable Richmond Amponsa, Achiase District, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Honorable Victoria Edu, Brim Central, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Honorable Isaac Apel Jesse, New Joabin South, Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano. Now, if Yemfa Nsembo Kesiye Nshiano, Honorable Paul Asamoah of Francia Yerebi, and Achimansa District, Yemfa Nsembo Nshiano. We koko football kakrebi na mebono. Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of questions about government's proposed electronic levy. I will have an opportunity to invite shortly some of our speakers to have an opportunity to speak to these questions and provide answers. With us this afternoon, as well as the Minister for Roads, the Honorable Amwakwata. Let's acknowledge him with a round of applause. The Honorable Deputy Minister for Information, the Honorable Fatimatu Abubakar. Let's acknowledge her with a big round of applause as well. I'll introduce more of the dignitaries who are here with us. I am informed that members of the clergy, Traditional Council representatives are here, market women representatives are here, Transport Union reps who are here. Give us a big wave wherever you are, Transport Union. Momo agents are here. National service persons are here. Members of NAT, TEU, TUTAG, hoteliers, beauticians, dressmakers, CTAG, NAGRAT, health workers, students, and other members of the cross-section of the Ghanaian society are here with us today. Kosa bebre na nipa bebre bisa fa e-levy no ho. E-levy na eda ade. Eden na be ya man. Eto a yetua wo Ghana no so eso adwuma yesra aban se aban enye man na. No krese e-levy no se aban eje a momo adwuma nyina begu. Wono ma epese e transfer sika ewo platforms ahodo so nyina begjae ana. Amanoni a epese yekọ bisi South Africa, bisi English abrochi, bisi America. Ehọ na to ahina omutua. Empen bi krampa besen kwa na yese se aban the talk time tax bar obi abegjae kasa ewo ne telephone so. Saasem no na bakosem sen nete. Na wie ye hia wa he ye nkomo ne ebedi no afanu brofo kakra na ye de aba akan kasa so kakra. Ewie radio ni TV ahodo bebre hwe yen etie yen enche bia mebobodin na enche bia mefre minister responsible for communication and digitization no abefi yen komodie no ase obema yehu abefo ntentan edwumadie no kwan o mofa so edidi dwa no emu abakosem sen nete emre bia besen kwa ye ka se be talk time tax a ampaniampa ebi mo sorry ti a se talk time tax ye de ba obi ankasa o telephone so biom telephone so komoni ade nyina begu ye nye sika bi amfiri mu sa amfidi dwuma ne ade nyina begu no na bakosem etesen enne amaya hodo ahena momo ana transaction levies we wo mo AGB sika sen na ade bre o maban ede mpuntu dwuma na o maban ede ye enema we ebi ena ni odikan yo ne ebe kasa minister for digitization and communication ede betu enim se mo e krado a Moma Yemfa Nshia, the Honorable Esla Owusu Ekofo. Ninkomano, obedi no brofo kakra, eni akan kasa kakra. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Minister for Finance, the Honorable Minister for Information, the Deputy Majority Leader in Parliament, the Honorable Minister for Roads and Highways, our host, the Honorable Regional Minister, MPs of the region here present, MMDCs of the region here present, the clergy who've graciously granted us the use of this hall for this program, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a good afternoon. I'll start in English and then try to translate it into Twi as I await the questions that will come from the floor. Over the past 18 months, it's become clear that if the African continent is to be globally competitive, it must embrace the common vision of creating an integrated and inclusive digital society that improves the quality of life of citizens, strengthens the development of the private sector, and advances Africa's quest to attain the Sustainable Development Goals. COVID-19, like every cloud, has a silver lining, and it accelerated the digitalization of Africa and helped us to see how pivotal digital platforms, applications, and services are. According to the UN Economic Commission for Africa, 61% of a sample of firms surveyed on the continent reported an increase in online sales since the start of the pandemic, while more than 60% of micro, small, and medium enterprises identified online selling as a top new opportunity in response to the crisis. As we were locked down, trading moved from shops to online and digital platforms. Globally, the digital economy is projected to grow from $11.5 trillion in 2016 to over $23 trillion by 2025. We cannot be spectators and observe events. We have to be part of the networked world of today. And as a government, we are focusing on improving access, reducing costs, and improving the speed of internet access, while also leveraging on digital platforms to augment fiscal policy and better shape the delivery of public services. We need to understand the nature of transactions being undertaken on digital platforms. And I'll try and give a small snapshot of this. A survey was recently conducted on transactions undertaken on digital platforms. And some of the results confirm that in Ghana, digital platforms have become the main tool in recent times for payment for goods and services, as well as for transfers and remittances locally and in some cases abroad. The survey also showed that digital transactions have surpassed cash and checks as the preferred medium for transacting business. Data from the Bank of Ghana and other sources have also confirmed 2020 the growing trend in 2021 alone. Ghana witnessed an increase of over 120% in the value of digital transactions compared to 44% for the same period between February 2019 and February 2020. Online selling offers convenience. It's easy to transact, it's secure, it is visible, And the surge, we believe, was primarily due to the increase in the use of digital platforms caused by COVID-19 at the beginning of 2020. We've all realized that without digital infrastructure, it's almost impossible to live in today's world. It's almost impossible to live in today's world. Try just 5 years ago. Today, as we speak, and we have the data for mobile money transactions from 1st to 24th January, 333 million plus mobile money transactions have been conducted just this year alone, from 1st to 24th January. Worth and the value of over 75 billion cedis has been transacted just for this period, and the month has not even ended. I don't have the comparable figures for the banks, but I dare say bank transactions will be just about a third of what we're witnessing on mobile money platforms. The Finance Ministry tells us, and he's here, he'll give us more detail on that our tax to GDP ratio stands at 12.2%, which is one of the lowest in sub-Saharan Africa. The average for the region is 16.5%. In practical terms, 8% of the population are paying for the developmental needs of the entire country and carrying the tax burden of 30.8 million people. That's not sustainable. And I dare say it is unfair to mainly public sector workers and those who are registered with the GRA as taxpayers, while the rest of us, both in the formal and informal sector, find ingenious ways of evading our civic responsibility to pay taxes. We're talking about a Ghana beyond aid. We need to be able to finance our own development and stop the dependence on either loans or grants or aid from other countries if we are to be truly independent. In 2008, the government of President Kufuor introduced the communication service tax in August of that year, and it became another source of income for national development. That tax was introduced at the rate of 6%, which was later increased to 9%. E-levy is being introduced at the lowest rate for any tax in Ghana, comparatively at 1.75%, less than 2%. In other countries, digital taxes are being introduced at the rate of up to 10%, and they are paying. That's the UK, and we go there and seek loans from them to finance our development when we are not paying the requisite taxes that we should. In 2020, the Communication Service Tax Amendment Act was passed to reduce the rate from 9% to 5% from the 15th of September 2020. When the CST was introduced, it faced similar opposition as we are seeing currently. And the current speaker dubbed it as talk tax, as the NDC and the industry, led by the GSMA data, claimed it would damage the growth of the telecommunications industry as consumers would change their mobile communication habits. This does not happen. They were unfounded fears. Incidentally, At the time, I was the spokesperson for the mobile telecommunications network operators. And I remember vehemently opposing the communication service tax based on data from the GSME, which is an industry association, the GSM Association internationally. They had produced data to the effect that introduction of any such tax would kill the industry, stifle its growth. And so based on that analysis, we all went out and opposed the introduction of that tax. Several years on, we realized that those dangers were unfounded. It never happened. The industry has grown exponentially since 2008, and all of us find telecommunications and digital infrastructure applications and services as indispensable to everything that we seek to do. The same speculations and complaints are being made about the e-levy, that consumers will stop using electronic transactions because of the imposition of this levy. I dare say that based on our experience with the communication service tax and lessons from other African countries, we're confident that the e-levy will not bring about any negative changes in consumer behavior, as electronic transactions afford us the convenience, the safety, the security that we currently enjoy. Despite the NDC's opposition to the communication service tax, they never repealed it when they were in power. They didn't even reduce the rate of the levy. They also complained about and rejected the National Health Insurance Scheme when it was introduced in Parliament and actually walked out. They complained about the capitation grant and sought to rubbish it. They had issues with free SHS and even asked for a boycott of the national ID and ridiculed our oil discovery as well, claiming that it was adringo and not crude oil. They always oppose every initiative that will ultimately benefit the Ghanaian people. But our collective experience shows, and they themselves admit, that despite their initial opposition to many of these interventions, they've proven to be worth their weight in gold. I dare say, and I appeal to them, to cooperate with government and work with us to pass this levy as well, because ultimately, the results that we got from the communication service tax, which clearly did not destroy the industry, will also be evident post-implementation of this levy, as we are all working collectively to enhance access to and use of digital platforms, working with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that digital financial services becomes the norm rather than the exception, as we strive to create a cash-light society and reduce our reliance on cash for our transactions. This year, working with the ministry and the developers of the Ghana.gov platform, we intend to move applications and payment for all government goods and services onto the Ghana.gov platform. If any of you has applied for a passport recently, you would vouch for the fact that it's made it easy, simple, corruption-free, harassment-free. The Goro boys are screaming because they're being deprived of their livelihood, because now you don't need to know anybody to acquire a passport. Just go onto the Ghana.gov platform, submit your application, pay for it, and you'll be sent notification of when to come and collect your passport. And when you go, your passport is ready for collection. You don't have to pay a bribe to anyone. We're going to do the same for all government goods and services using that platform to ease government to citizen interactions and make it easier for us to conduct business in this country. It is not a story I'm telling you. It is a fact which is happening. If you apply to register a company now, you would see that, and I used this example yesterday, the minute you register your company, notification is sent to your district assembly where that business is located. They also send you notification instantly about the amount of business operating license that you have to pay. You pay for it electronically. You get a receipt electronically. You're ready and you're set to commence business without having to pay bribe, join any queue, or suffer any harassment. That's the kind of digital infrastructure that we're putting in place, which will facilitate the use of digital forms of payment and will not collapse the industry. So I can say confidently to the Momo operators that we're working to grow your business and not to destroy it. A GSMA report also showed that when the levy, a similar levy was passed in Uganda, transaction values reduced slightly upon the introduction of this levy, but they picked up almost immediately, and after 4 months were back at the levels before the introduction of the tax, and currently have far outstripped those levels. I'm confident that it won't take even 4 months for the industry in Ghana here to absorb this levy and grow even more, as was the case with the communication service tax. We're unique, we're blessed, we're a nation after the heart, God's own heart. And so we've learned lessons from the experiences of other countries that have introduced digital taxes in this continent. And that is why the Minister for Finance has put a cap, a safety cap, whereby transactions up to 100 cedis are exempted from the levy to ensure that those who send these sums are not severely impacted. And 40% of all Momo transactions fall in this category. So almost half of all the transactions are exempted. Just a few statistics about how much we spent on e-commerce by January 2021. We spent 234 million on travel, mobility, and accommodation. This was even down by 34% due to COVID restrictions on travel. We spent over 144 million on fashion and beauty on electronic platforms. This is in Ghana here. All these transactions happened electronically and went largely untaxed. Business has moved from physical locations online, outside the reach of the GRA, and depriving government of much needed revenue. We need to reverse that, and the e-levy will do that. It will enable government to build a proper digital infrastructure and create a digital marketplace which will connect buyers and sellers and help people access value-added services such as e-health, e-agric, e-education, etc. It will provide funding for cybersecurity to protect us from cyber fraudsters and criminals as we engage more on digital platforms. We all want connectivity, and a robust digital infrastructure will drive down the cost of using telecommunication services and improve access to digital services. We're rolling out the rural telephony project. It will also give all of us a chance to contribute to our own development and our economy, our economic and infrastructural development. It will reduce corruption, theft, and other forms of embezzlement because it is inherently traceable and people can't hide and commit fraud or crimes behind it. If you use a credit or a debit card, you pay between 2 to 4% transaction fees. And so the levy is on the lower end of total cost. All bank transfers also attract bank charges. So it is not true that this is going to affect or be double taxation or tax our capital as well. But I leave that for the finance minister to talk more about. The roads minister is here. We'll get funding for road construction and maintenance and more reliable payments for existing contracts to reduce the overall burden on government. Such infrastructural development will also create more jobs for the youth and cut down on youth unemployment, as Youth Start initiative would also do. More financial inclusion and digital empowerment for the less privileged in our society would also ensue. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are there for government to achieve, including reducing inequality, gender equality, education, clean water, and sanitation. We need to find a way of increasing domestic revenue mobilization, which is key to achieving these goals. If the funds are not generated internally, we would either have to go and beg for aid, borrow. We can't steal. So we would either have to beg or borrow. And we cannot continue to borrow to finance or beg to finance our development. Government is seeking to meet its agenda of a Ghana beyond aid. And this requires all of us to support the e-levy and contribute our quota to national development. The world is changing, and we must depend more on our own internally generated funds for our development. He who pays the piper calls the tune. So long as we are dependent on donors, they will dictate the pace of our development. And so we need to rely less on donors to be truly independent. Our destiny really lies in our own hands. Someone, Niamikaye, ne tofabo, moane se. Abai yen shishay a ebema yen de abefo. Infidie ene ntahudie yashemu ekna. Ni nyina eye sikasam. Na se yampe yankasa yenya sika ewo yankasa yenhu entua for yempuntuo na ye nyina ye hwehwe na jesi yekobobosia ana yekosre na okosra de a oni na okosre wono ho no ono na ekire wo se da ha yesei nti na yemfa ahodie a yenya as oman no a ankrankre amanone fo na wo se omo efso yasene na ye yempuntu nyuma no na ene na yemfa ahodie no na yedi ne sen efise yensa ehye wanum emri bi atwam yekọ IMF omo ka kire yense mayema mabu yemfa mabu adwumamu ewo aban adwumakuom. There was a freeze on employment enti na yemma etifie a yenya adwuma enye efise omo ma yensika no ena ehye yenkete se mayemfa yemma ewo adwumam yensusu de enim se yendaache impuntu agina entete a yede bema yemma no ene nti e wose yemma won entete a bema omotumi aye abefo nkitahudie no omosusu de won ho ebeji mu bi ni nyina eyiska wo hwe yensika sem se ni nsitie na se yankasa yansomu kakra we aso ha we asora ni entwa ne kakra yempuntuo no ebeka akire emri bia yede talk tax eba no eye afi 2008 no yeti hoye send ye yeti ni sesie say yede talk tax ne ba ebem ye nyina ye jai kasa ewo telephone so ebegu adwuma no internet adwuma no enkoso ebio ewrade adom mampani nkufu aban etumi edebaa time ayede ba no na me ye adwuma ewo mene kasamafo emma network telecoms service operators no enti ye ne aban esi ye ni bia e kan bia se yede ba no ebe ha adwuma no na nimdia kakra omode ama ye free GSM association e kire se ebe ha adwuma no nanso Abakosem ye nyina ye living witnesses. Ye di mu adanse ye se ye de talk tax ba ye no. Edwuma yi enwu etumpon menne obia dwumadie bi a wo ye bia no. Wonni internet access, wonni data, wonni phone na dwumadie na wo ye no. Ne ye no eye den ema ye nyina kakra. Enti ne ye ti se ebegu adwuma no. Enye saa na esiye. Me wa rehemu se saa akuo ya ne mpanimfo bi nso so asori kasetia e-levy. Send ye see with talk tax to me wa rehemu se ye de e-levy nso so ba enwu adwuma bia emom aban kra enne ye nhyehyeye a ebe ma amanfo dodo na eyusu abefo kwan so adi nktaho se ye dwadie se ye adesua se ye apomuden empo se ye kuayo ye hye ne nyina kena emu kena na yafa abefo kwan so na de aye dwadie titru ye mpese ye de sika ebedi dwa ye pese obia use digital financial services yibi either mobile money ana credit card ana debit card ana QR code abefo hyehye ne aye ni bebre a ye pese ankrankra nyina eyusu abefo kwan so edidi wonja enti ye nuanom wo musuro so mo adwuma begunu me ameda saa asuaye anu me hye mo bose nhyehyeye a ye de agu akwan mu no afi kra na ebema adwuma no etumpon na akonkan na ya trem na ya bre yesusu sika a kasha ye yusu no bebre no ye pese ye teso na ye fa abefo kwan so mo edidi yendwa ene ebo yembra enti nhyehyeye na ye no betremu mom emmensei ebehye mu ekina baby omudi sa edwumakuo yi bi etuo yi bi ba ye no so ye hu ohawo kakra eba won ho no enti yen ye de aba yen hyehyeye ni mu a ya nhyehyeye a ebeyi sa hawo no dodo na afri ho enti ma yenkoma entu se levy ye de ba ebeba ba be ha yen de bi ye hwe sika ye di ye yusu ye enokra dollar nye cedi ewo abefo ntentan dwadie a ye di January afi a etwamu 2021 ni mu a $234 million ena ye di ewo e-commerce abefo edwadie mu ewo ekwantuo kafa ene accommodation price can say high emu aha $234 million enumpo no na eswate oha enchichemu eduasa enan esign covid restrictions na eba eninti ti yate so 34% nimpo no ena na ye $234 million efa emanta reshe ni makeup mu ni sa niema na ye di mu dwaga na hankwa o $144 million on fashion and beauty alone enti si ye san hyehyeye ya omo di sa adwa nyina ewo abefo mfidie isu omo ntwea eho eto bia nanso ye mra no ekire se udidwa ewo memu ha na wunya mfaso bi ewo ha ewo se utwea ho eto emfa ho se wabie store ana wo hye wo dan mu wudi and edi se adwa no abefo kwanso ti adwuma no move afri store dan mu akọ digital platform so abefo okay abefo ntentan enhyehyeye eso eho no GRA entumi enjeje ye eto na ewo se omogye nti ase nipa kakra bi ohanchichemu enwotwe epe enetua to ewo memu ha a yedidi yempuntuduma enyina omukomu ebu yenyinara yebetumi atua nkakra edi asomwasene siyasi Ghana beyond Ghana ujina ne nanso afa ne ntuma pefra a ono ankasa abo ne brad na abo ano na yɛtumi editua yɛmpuntuo no ho ka yɛma benya adwuma ayɛ abɛɛfo nhyehyɛe no yɛbɛtrem ɛho bambɔ no yɛbenya sika no bi yɛde ayɛ ka kwan yɛbenya bi de ayɛ agenda 111 hospitals a yɛpɛ sɛ yɛsie no yɛbenya bi de ayɛ nti yɛbɛsrɛ Ghanafoɔ nyinaa ɛnkanka yɛn nuanom dɔm kumaafoɔ ne sɛ ɔmo ɛmɛka yɛn ho na ehu na aba wɔ mu sɛ ɛyɛ adebɔne bi a ɛba ɛbɛha yɛn no ɔmo nyi saa hu no mfiri yɛn mu na mmom yɛn nyinaa yɛmfa yɛn hoɔden ne yɛn ani akyiri na yɛnhwɛ sɛ sika na yɛgyegyeɛ toɔ na yɛgyegyeɛ no nea yɛaka sɛ yɛde bɛyɛ no mpania mpa nea yɛaka sɛ yɛde bɛyɛ no mpania mpa yɛde edi saa adwuma no yɛyɛ saa aban so bɛtena ase sika bi enyu nkɔ obiara bɔtɔm kɛtaahyehyɛ ne prɔyɛ ɛbɛbra ase efisɛ woyɛ adwuma abɛɛfo nhyehyɛe mu a ani ɛdam ɛda hɔ fan mfra ɛda mu nyinaa ase
Quantum ceremony, you may find some more and Honorable Minister for Communications and Digitalization. I say, Wachre, Yabako Sam Kakra, Ewa Bra, Infidie ne Abefum, Fidie Kwanso, a Hotofi, I say, Mampani Kufwa Breso, and Como a course of Sabrani, say, Bemani na Kuregu. Uncle Sisa, Wachre E-Levy, Sika, near Juma, Yepese Disa, Sikane, Wasan Swachre, a Hukakre woman, Nebi Mo say. Sembo no ye kɔgyegye saa toɔ no ɛwɔ abɛɛfo ntintaa kwan so a ɛbɛba ne sɛ saa nnwuma ne adeɛ nyinaa ɛbɛgu. Honorable Minister yɛda wase mpanimfoɔ mmienu wɔ hɔ aka ɔm ne ɛbɛdi nkɔmmɔ yɛwie a na mede mic na ma wo na asɛm bisa anaasɛ adwenkyerɛ a wowɔ no wo so wode ato aban anim ɛwɔ saa town hall meeting nea ɔbɛkasa a ɛtwa toɔ bɛyɛ Minister for Finance owura Kenoforeta nankasa na mmom saa bere moma yɛmfa nsɛmbɔ kɛseɛ enka me ho na yentun samfre member of parliament ofi efutu ono am so obedi kan ka fante ana honorable mubwana ono obedi kan ka fante na honorable ibia ifi ase no oda kire hen titru akwan ho asem a yerka sande wara on the road fund no aka ho bi sika ye hia nde boso tv obi are demonstration hia na kwano sika ye hia za ya kwano ho adwuma them E-Levy, obey them waboy. One man fancy boy and fancy Honorable Alex Afenyo Marking.
Opeyin Finance Minister Oye Onyamfo Kenoforeta and Mami Esla Owusu Ekofo Oye Communications and Digitalization Minister Otipunechu Aban Mpanyinfo Asofo Ankrankro Ejumayefo ana Ghana mba Ewabri oye menije the menya akonya the America sama ban ifa hen E-Levy mejizi de se aban ozi taxi bi anazo de ozi bibiriba a obatwi sikefi hen kotukuma yete no ho nsem pii za orusinde onye wonwa za mejiz do onye inchechrim en no ha na mo na yerutu ozikan matwe hon adwen akwaechiri kakra oye abana owodu oye campaign da wonto aba mfaman aba woto we no nsunsun do na Omampeyin Akufo-Addo in the Otsi Egodo. time party iwo opposition okeka nsem bi na nyusuaze hun oba ben maza obotu nwaye a yenyina yete yenuanom so na wo wa abem na wo so wo nhyehyei bi a Ghana fo yenyitua na odube bi na se yekade da mazi ye ba ye be ya anwon so wo se de bi ahia na ye wa abem da mazi MPP fo mu ba muruntu mu ye menimo ko nsam kra na ebiebiem yeka free SHS Yaruka electricity tariffs sika yetua jezi twin enyan mkania yeka nursing training allowance yeka teacher training allowance dam nzama mabubo ni nyinara tama MPP party owo opposition no NDC abana no wodo simipi kade onam there electricity a kawa ye boy to produce electricity in tin abanuruntum until electricity do inti yem prepared in ye kokoto na wasa ye complain omampanyin na we fido onya akukudru kade sentry bi wo osande e kawo ho nurses training allowance teacher training allowance wo yi fi ho wo se e kawo bi nti woruntum the marasuna moframa dodo a na wa pass one BC or the work secondary school went to one call because kenyi fi there be America sa me say me secondary school am kro no oyadom no ma me cross secondary school za me pia kanye there the means me nyinara no oye hawa no owo Ghana abana no wodo si there woruntum na wonye ho hwe a ye nyina ye nyim MPP party eba sam na okay for MPP party ne kada de bi ahyen ye botum ya ye ne ye oni nti wo mahena akwanya oni seso nyankopon ye adom ma NDC ifido ma MPP bay da manzame nyinara oye free SHS a wose ye ntumi yen nyankopon na adom ye dam national teacher training allowance nursing training allowance aban science bay electricity obiara anda ndwene de electricity tariffs na owo soro no botum abefom obefom ami no yo yagitum yagihu yezihu dese wo inyare mun aban amfa tax biara amba menyu ka say yenyi free SHS levy na yenyi free SHS tax rather no aban taxes ana NDC aban ahihye guwo de o di yetuan opinion can oforiata otihi oba parliament obotwitwa taxes ni nyinare mu odu baby yenuanu NDC fo say na taxes nyina na morotwa akwai mo be den na ma finance government expenditure the records are there abani yiji taxes fifi akonim otetew baby oyedo otetew do abani until now impose new taxational measures of the burden Ghanaians. The records are there. Na e-levy ofihi. Mpanyinfo a yeshimwa. Yenyina yenyu anda de COVID bi reba. Oba sei gozi. Oba ma nkrofo won adwuma akofom. Oba ma akwentu ahaw ende nemu nsem pii. Wiase ni bebiara, abani biara rebre. Osande sikasama all there okodo na abani tum ozini dwuman da misika ni bi nyiwo nti yabaye na dan abana asama oro karanye de minyimu ezi no kwar meba ye social intervention programs may impose a tax to finance them but easy baby ayedui or they ye solve nzama akase bien wo oman Ghana onye baze yen roads yana kwan yana moframa wope edwuma aye mpanyinfo Minister of Roads waha. Meka Tinegwa no do as road fund chairman na minim there a gun hit wom papa. Is in Krofoka obey 5 billion. Sika abano, sika na abano, oye 30 million. Itue kwesata inyamanze. Itue adwa mansakawa inyamanze. Wona na intue na kawo. Na no kwakwanyi Goro boys. Then bi obi sene a certificate bi mam. Na mu da certificate na akọ viral. Ehwe WhatsApp na certificate na nante wa che. Obi aso onyim obi na wojiji nkofo woniska. We need a system, a verifiable system, a reliable system. Open create certainty. You're a businessman. You can your business. And there's no certainty attached to the outcome of your business. Your cost of doing business increases. Or you even better forget about it. Problem all when you yes, something there. Road tolls bosom 6 million, 7 million. Afimun ahin. Now a kilometer of a road obako sahin. The 6 million on yen koduhe. Nambom no yemfa ntubo ote da membra. Yazeba enhyehyeye wo ho no aban benya sike bia no mu yedula regularly no yebo do contractors wo tua manka. Na se contractor yedwuma no won tua na kawa. Obede na wase na bedo. Ontumba yen nyinara ye wo parliament. Yekọ yen mpesuda nsama wo bi sen anyi de daba na ebe yakoni Rose minister or answer question chen minister of parliament because MPBA was opede wo yakoni iti mesre yehia za yebotum na yeza ye na akon na yetum na yetua akontractors no ka contract or yedwuma offer obi a onkita nsa na edwuma kra obi a wanko school offer obi a we ko machine operation orphan university graduate engineer wafan open management team obi oye finance oye accountant oye dam into contractors for say yetum years yenwa rehwo ho na edwuma ni ya up manage the economy so that what the government expects to have in terms of growth in Kenya. Until we can't allow that sector to continue to suffer. And Mijizi there, e-levy is one major answer. Second, Finance Minister, also you start. At on your base. Yanam Brente, says Sierra Zo Oho Cassini there. O man paying Akufado ni free SHS in it. From a Warburg graduate if university. And na dodoa woba nyanyimzi wo Ghana no on the phone obi wie secondary school another okwa technical school wie ano wie university opedwuma ye ana yezo obi bia ba sha abanedwuma man so police was afibia wo for 10,000 immigration 10,000 fire service 10,000 ahina obotu afa ekwa abrochi mema when ye osande ankrankre djuma wa hye za eja finance minister oya papa no ye moborama je owa boter oye ne djuma hu de nkankata ma woso onya homokampon osmeye ikwa ha oroko osmeye because onara ozi dese de ankrankre djuma na ama wedu bebia wedu nti ozinankasa ne personal experience no all relate and telling us that it when you see was ye juma na sabio enyi sika e ye mobor e ko bank akaji bosia ye mu binum brebo ase wa ankrankra juma yem na yenyim bank loan akaja e draw wum especially when you are a starter abanin shisha there them e-levy part of it was the Boshe Yanambana Wewe University. Yanambana Weko Swansa and Jumebi. Nambana, what when you zibi the one Casasu pede, where you one arm crown crejuma. Osande so on what she making now. In your hen nana yeke chase a jumawa abim. na chede abanan adwumasam rekodo na ye kase nyinara enya so ayeye amanyofo yete ye ho and a forum like this ye amba pretend there's a America wo fom yente oya yet was all politicians kafra wo zisika poli wo zisika wezi ana yente muka na monka no kware inti sa muka na dama na the main concern there how would that money be utilized dembre minister okay there is going to be a transparent system emi no yowo yebotum ya track the abanizi da mi e-levy bay no korenyi contractors is deside otua won kaw no korenyi yebotum yezihu deside embrenten nketesia dodo a wokitansa to survive as a government because abani wo track record the oben otetil tax do ibi compose oyi fi ho meanwhile no yerbebe nyinara no abana nka de mama mensa do sesi amrebo county free SHS metrum abana nka dem abana nka nche teacher training nurses there look sesi ayehu de sikenyi wonti allowance yetrum meanwhile no abani heska no za solve critical nzeme bia obobo hen now the politics of it I mean emide bia meka de politics me ye MPP obisu ye CPP or your competition se nyimpa na anka sentiam a obe na wa babem abazinti no de bi obonsem mam so no ya ze papam po a aka ye politics nti no oyedo oka bibi odu twa ozibochu ya tibida oye no mampanyin kufo ozisikas akahye fango ne hwehwem magana yetu fango makade was a castle the mabre abrofi was a fango catch o mampanyin kufo yeti wo radio du pi was fango na was we hu onye no kwar da Ghana yanam hi ne ye Kenya fango eyi mposi se oya adwongo yati obibia o wa ha bia no ozi ho dese nanso na chirin e baaze ne yehu do ye no kwar fango abagana mpa yetu inde sanye dam fango ya yenyen ya che yegina hin enti Ghana mba yemfa NDC sam MPP sam ntwenche budget no ya pass wo parliament yen NDC for na ya pass budget no pepepe wankade the opposed rate records will bear me out consensus ye wo bibia wo fan appropriation na anyi de aban sike biara aban onyetum efi parliament and some was spent ono nso ya pass by consensus now I pass budget ewi na I pass appropriation is aban ko spend aban respend no benye sika no wahi enti sika no obenya na otum na ozi ayewu roads na mofra mo wedwumasam akodon na se bio onezi menyun ya adwena na ibi aka na chada wana politics in Oriba ba mo wenyi sum de yenuanom watena be me dey wonye ba ya adwen de yes initially was wonye ya adwen etri was so wonye ya nchonye 1% finance minister waka ne name also telcos no oni wana akasa was so 0.25 busy was obutu watso da men nti yenhwe ne farba anyi inde ehyezi nti Ghana mba enuanom nti America nyi de woma yenye jezi ewo nhyehyɛ yi mu Osande abani be obi biara owo Ghana ni abani pon ya adwen beja tom de asem biara abani kae de onye tuma obeye nhyehyai biara odena no kae no se enyu ohuni a aswat. There is no way a Ghana nyi bi botum ejine bebi waka do oh dam Akufo-Addo abani owo opposition okada oba obeye dem obe mpo onye hwe inya beni ya adwumpo ntumunka osande za woken wo manifesto promise me no was it yedwuma. It can be 100% that I concede, but largely it's been implemented. Intino wonye jizi de inyanda adabi na mwenyi sum de embro de henanyimi sa Nyankopon ya adom ne ye pass azia Ghana fo obehu no mu mfaso ibi esiga wo mampanyin Kufuor na abredo ibi esi wo Akufo-Addo na abredo ne basan yehu bibi papa wo abani mu nti wo ma yenyina yente yechi Nyankopon ni hye won de wetim mede won asipi nyame hye won de
wo me fansem bokesema the Honorable Alexander Fenyomaki, Member of Parliament for Ifutu na anu disem na nchechemu a oza amaheni enuanom na dofo nche bia meje akasemu no baba bibmewo na adwenkyerɛ wɔ asembise bi ɛwɔ no wasɔ dza atompanyimfo yi hɔ n'enyim bema wedri mepɛdɛ mefrɛ ɔmane hɛn fotosamfo the minister responsible for finance, the Honorable Kenneth Nanaya Okutunkununku Oforiatta. Let's receive him with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's good to be in Koforidua. Colleague ministers, thank you very much for being here. Our pastors, thank you for blessing these occasions, members of parliament, and everyone else here. It's really an exciting afternoon for me to be here with you. And as my colleagues have said, to really talk through this issue of e-levy and to see what we can do as a country to move forward and also move really out of the shackles of the West, where we continue to borrow so much money and then they dictate to us what we should do. So this is an emancipation of sort, and we should really take it to heart. We are the black star. We are the shining star of Africa. And there are three pillars that we deem we should inculcate, because ours is a country that leads, and it's an idea for the continent. So we started as the first independent sub-Sahara Africa country in Nkrumah's time. For our size, we led the whole continent into democracy. It took almost 60 years for us to then have an organ of the AU in our country, and that was the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which really it's the new independence. Emancipating ourselves politically in the 60s and then moving at this time to being the hub for investments and trade, which is the new economy that we have to. But there are three pillars that our president always wants to remind us about. We're en route to achieving before COVID, and even that, I think we are going to recover strongly for it. And the third leg, which the president has also emphasized on, is our spiritual independence. And so even in the midst of this leading politically a great carryover in terms of our economic achievements, and now what we call the National Cathedral, which is also going to be a centerpiece of what Ghana represents. So Ghana as an idea is something that we should capture. But what does that mean? It's going to require us to be a confident, prosperous society with the human capital that is required to be able to raise our heads and lead Africa and the black race complete emancipation. But it's going to take some sacrifices on our part and a clarity for us that we are leaders and will do extraordinary things. So this is our lot, and this is where the president insists that we should step up in history to be able to achieve that and lead Africa out of this morass. And we have seen it, especially during this time of the COVID experience, where the West have left us where we should be. We have a system in Africa where literally 90% of all our pharmaceuticals are imported, and a whole series of things that create dependency. And therefore, when the global supply chain is cut, we have problems, big problems. So we went through 2017 to 2019 with incredibly stellar results as to what we as a country had been able to achieve, moving from 3.4% of growth to somewhere over 7%, reducing our budget deficits from 6.5% into about 5%, making sure that our currency did not depreciate as it used to be, and is quite stable, and also having the necessary foreign exchange cover to make sure that we are able to support our currency and our imports. I mean, during this period, we did the impossible. We spent over 40 billion cedis on education, 14 billion on healthcare, 14.9 billion on enhancing internal security, 18 billion on flagship projects, and it just continues as to the things that we were able to do with monies that the NDC were sure we will never be able to get. So the benefits have been for all of us an all-inclusive growth in which about 1.26 million people have benefited from free SHS, 3.45 million covered by school feeding program, the NATCO, 100,000 young persons, the largest in our history, and over 344 households given Lifeline under the LEAP program. So for us, the sovereignty of our people is clear. Everybody as a citizen having a part in this enterprise of this idea of a Ghana that is confident, prosperous, and leading the nation states of the world. Our president has also earned incredible international repute, and now when Ghanaians walk outside or even here, NDC or MPP, their heads are high because they know that Akufo-Addo has done it. Let's give him a clap. So we have to continue with these initiatives. And that then is a challenge of where do we get the resources to be able to do this. Traditionally, when you are caught in such a vice, you go to petrol, you increase it, and we know the cataclysmic effect it has on all of us when we do that. You know, so the good Lord, looking at what the president does, you know, led us into this area of e-commerce. As the minister mentioned, we have grown from a country that was transferring about 78 billion a year in 2016 to over 500 billion this year, likely to be close to $1 trillion, 950 billion next year. Now that is a system that everyone uses, that all of us use. So when she talks about only 2.4 million people paying taxes to support the 30.8 million, you begin to see the enormity of pressure on these 2.4 million people. And how is that sustainable? How do you deepen democracy if you do not pay taxes? Your ability to challenge the political elite is muted, or you join in some underhanded things that we should not be doing. So we came back with the e-levy, purportedly for three reasons. Well, first, certainly to broaden the tax base, and then to increase revenue. And when you look at Ghana and the rest of our region, we have about 12.2% or so revenue to GDP, which is as awfully low compared to our neighbors, 16.5% and up. That we cannot sustain. So we need to cure that. And then when you even look at the distribution of how we pay taxes, you have literally 88% being paid in Greater Accra, and Eastern region, I have you know, that if we combine Eastern region, Ashanti region, and Western region together, they pay 3% of national taxes. That can't be right. And the population will bear me out that that can't be right. So we must all find a way to what we call burden share to be able to do that. So let's dig deep in ourselves. Nobody likes taxes. But really, if you look at our debt situation, what we need to do, so we raise our own money to be able to build the roads that Kwesi Amwakwata is looking for, that all of you are looking for, then we must pay our way through it. If we begin to look at our employment issues, and I think that's a place that is really passionate for our president. And there's good reason for that, because what are we saying? We are saying that under the age of 24, you literally have 56% of our population in that zone. And when you look at economically active people in our country, you have about 11 million people, and that also then requires that we look at that population. Now, if you were to even begin to look, because of the issue of education, you have about 4.6 million people at primary school. By the time we get to JHS, JHS to SHS, we move from 2.6 to 1.2 million. So what happened to that group of people in that category? And then from SHS to tertiary schools of all nature, we get to about 500,000. So 700,000 people have vanished. And then we train them in tertiary institutions, and maybe 10% or less, if every individual as a Ghanaian, must be something that we care about. We cannot hide our head in the sand, pretending that this is not an issue that would cripple our country and really demean the status of our persons as Ghanaians. But we're people who are the black star, who should be shining, who should be leading in the world. So, the President is extremely worried about unemployment, and therefore, this 10 billion YouStart program, the largest that the country has ever seen, you know, young pioneer pales in comparison to it, or anything else. And this also came through effective burden sharing. Burden sharing in the effect that we then approached the banks, and the banks agreed to provide 5 billion for private sector and small businesses for the next 3 years. We approached our international financial partners. They agreed for another 2 billion, that's 7 billion to support this effort. And government itself, through the e-levy, will do 1 billion cedis a year to ensure that this 10 billion package enables us to take care of our youth, which is really important to each one of us. Because really, at the center of our party is the reverence for the individual citizen. Because it is that human capital that makes the difference in all that we do. And it is something that our friend, Second Deputy Majority Leader mentioned, that we have all experienced. Because yes, you see all of us here like that, but we all had very humble beginnings, and therefore I grew up in Chebi, lived a mile away from school, wake up in the morning, you go to the river, get your water, put your plantain in your pocket, and walk 1 mile from where we live to Chebi Government School. If you get to the school, because Brem is on the way and you might decide to swim all day instead of going to school. So that was what happened. And then fortunately, Dad decided that, oh, I have some son in Chebio, so let me find him. And that is what made the difference. The intervention that changed from you not being the smartest person in your Chebi school, because you didn't even go to school. You typically went swimming to find some okoto to catch. So that be it. And that changed the trajectory of my life to be standing here today, being the finance minister. And also, fortunately, had a strong mother who decided not to abort because she was young. And the young man from the royal family had come home for holidays, and one thing led to the other. And the poor woman was at fault for my dad's problems. But anyway, so this is it. So the issue of President Akufo-Addo insisting on senior high school is because he knows the transformation that would occur in that. But then it leads to human capital that must also be helped on its way forward to realize, who they are and what they can do for themselves and the nation. So over this period, we have spent all of this wonderful money to be able to bring our economy into some stability until COVID hit. And COVID, has been devastating globally, and therefore all of us have to recalibrate one way or the other how we move forward. But even in the middle of that confusion, you had a president who was clear in his mind, as he said, don't ever waste a crisis. So charge the Ministry of Finance to come up with a transformation program, even in the middle of that. That's the Mother Care Soba Tampa program, so that we move our legs, we continue to look towards the sun, and find a way that when the COVID is over, we will be ahead of the game. So we have the issues of debt, we have the issues of employment, and we have Kwesi Amwakwate's issues that we have to deal with, which we all embrace because we want roads, we want digital infrastructure, we want physical infrastructure. And this is what we have brought to Parliament. What do we do about this? And the numbers are clear that the economy is shifting from the physical to the virtual, and therefore we need to be up ahead of the game. So we then brought to Parliament a 1.75% levy. As the Minister has mentioned, this is not the most egregious tax that you could get, but it really leads to the issue of inclusion of all of us to build our society and wherever we really want to go to transform this land. And that has been the subject of this debate. The question is, do we want to move to this new Jerusalem? Do we want to move to this new El Dorado so that we can, as a people, show that with our own resources, and there's plenty of it, as you see various buildings coming up in this country, And even as you look at 1D, 1F, I think we started the 181 or so 1D, 1Fs around. Nobody thought it was possible, of which 106 are complete around the districts, and 81 odd and more are happening. You can also see what happened of Planting for Food. That has resulted, in a sense, in actually being able to export some food at certain points in time. So that really is a reason. Can we sustain our debt and pay for it ourselves so we don't go out borrowing so much? Can we have the resources to support employment, which is key and affects all of us, and really is very dispiriting and breaks down the dignity of our people? That is not the people that we are. And then can we support our infrastructure to be able to then increase productivity, move around the country, and create that modern society that we talk about. And that really, in a sense, is also now going to be elevated by AFCFTA, which is here, so that the issue of regionalizing our economy is now upfront with us. And that is a logistics hub, automobile hub, tourism hub, healthcare hub, etc. And then you see the modern economy that our forebears were confident that we will be able to construct in our land and show Africa and the world the way to go. So when people say, why e-levy and why you should reduce it? Well, we listened. We truly listened and said, well, maybe when something is new, you can have very negative thoughts on that. But we've heard a lot of the history of that, and that people, one way or the other, in opposition, would oppose anything, whether it's good or bad. But we all know, that the Council Norma effort, NCAD, Sika, and F. If you are in Sika, I am friend talk idea. So that really is what we talk about when we say we want this e-levy to ensure that we are masters of our own destiny, that what happened with COVID will not have such a devastating effect because we'll have our own resources and we'll be able to guide ourselves in the way in which we've managed. So we've come a long way from being in the grips of the IMF to our freedom to be able to do what we do. And I think people forget what happened when we were in the IMF program. We couldn't pay for nurses and teachers. We couldn't hire anymore because there were restrictions on that. I mean, it's just really thinking you can go back to Egypt in a way in which we have forgotten how difficult and pernicious that master from Washington was. So we can deal with them for them to give us advice, but we need not ever get into IMF program. And if we don't do this e-levy, you are just pushing yourself in a way that would potentially end up in such a disaster. And I mean, there was a warning of that because last week was a very difficult week for the country. Last week we got downgraded by Fitch, ostensibly because they did not believe we could raise the revenues that we had forecasted because we were fighting about e-levy. But what does that mean when you get downgraded and the spreads widen for your bonds? Essentially, what we are saying is that if you go back to the market, you may pay about 500 basis points more, which means that if I borrowed $1 billion, I pay $50 million more each year. The bonds are usually 10 years, and so 50 times 10, that's $500 million a year. All because we were arguing and not being able to make up our mind on resources that we needed. So we need to moderate that because the consequences are quick. But I'm sure last week there were other things that also were difficult for us as a country. The Bogosu incident was not good for anybody And then, of all places, Comoros could beat us in soccer. Now that, that should not ever happen again. I hope the coach has been taking our geography out of our country by now. So this is where we are with e-levy, and why we therefore need it, why we should be passionate about it. It will give us about 6.9 billion Ghana cedis, but it's really the beginning, because as you put these taxes in place, you sharpen the administration of it, and as the growth trajectory, as described by the minister, will be clear. That is going to be an anchor for our taxation, and therefore a continuing capacity and robustness of our ability to get the revenue mobilization that is required. Now, the e-levy, what does it cover? I'm sure we'll do a Q&A on that. So it's mobile money transfers between accounts on the same electronic money issuer, mobile money transfers from an account on one EMI to a recipient on another EMI, transfers from bank accounts to mobile money accounts, transfers from mobile money accounts to bank accounts, and bank transfers on a digital platform application which originate from a bank account belonging to an individual. Then also, what does it not cover? Cumulative transfers of 100 cedis per day by the same person. So if you transfer 100 cedis per day, there's no e-levy on that. I remember being Frenchiniko, or Achimhimai is the new improved name, where a lady said, Nasada, yende 100 cedis for a dose. Na busumi biya say enya 3,000 cedis a month for a dimia transfer. In Yadana, 100 cedis exemption, no. One of the audience a high dodo. It's a 30 cedis, 20 cedis na a hojuma. The Hokran po nipatia say, we should encourage that. But really, we have pegged it at 100 per day, which means 3,000 a month you will not touch. And I'm not sure there are any poor people below above the 3,000 level. So transfers between accounts owned by the same person would also not be touched by e-levy. Transfers for the payment of taxes, fees, and charges, and anything on the Ghana.gov platform would also not be charged. Electronic clearing of checks is exempt, and specified merchants, i.e. merchants whose payments to commercial establishments are registered with GRA for income tax and VAT purposes. And then transfers between the principal, master agents, and agent accounts would also not be charged. So really, in the end, that becomes, where the car meets the road. And what we are saying, in effect, is in looking at these issues of debt, of employment, of infrastructure, I think we should all look to support this. 1.75% of monies that you send around is not the money that is going to kill you, but the cumulative effect of moving from 2.4 million to maybe 11, 12 million paying their part of our taxes will just create this pool of resources for us to be able, as a country, to continue to hold our heads high and be that free, independent nation of pride with the three pillars of political independence, economic emancipation, and spiritual, I don't know what the word should be, also spiritual elevation would occur for us as a country. So let's really hold our MPs' feet to the fire to let them know that we understand who we are as a people, a proud nation, who want to pay their own way. Yes, we haven't for a long time. And then there are issues of accountability. And in going through over Christmas to Enyinam, Apapem, Himai, and then Pram Pram in Greater Accra, it was very clear, as Honorable Markin mentioned, the issue of accountability. So how do I then come to you every quarter or to Parliament to show how those resources were used, to show what we have used e-levy for, so that we all move in step and begin, to reduce the cynicism on politicians and accountability for all of us. But when you pay, you are likely to have that voice to be able to yell, shout, and demand that. Yeah. So we have the YouStart program as part of it going forward. We'll be able to sustain our debt and reduce it and pay our way through, and the issues of infrastructure, digital and physical. Would also, especially roads, will also be taken care of. So, ladies and gentlemen, this really is an opportunity to ask other questions that may be on your heart, and to understand the sincerity of where government is coming from, with even the limited resources, the amazing record that we have established, and what we need to do these 3 years, and then to continue to break the 8, because we have been shown to be faithful with little, and therefore will do more. So, as the Bible says in Genesis, if these people can speak one language, then there will be no restraint to what we can do. So let's speak this one language of e-levy, let's make it pass, and there will be no restraint to where we'll go as a people. But we need the spirit of courage, of love, and self-discipline for us to get there. Thank you very much.
Ma Yemonsema, Honorable Minister for Finance, Honorable Ken Oforiatta, Honorable Bano Beyin Seminibiano, Obebo Ninkomodi no Tofa Ewotrimu, Jumedi GTV, F1 Live, Joy News, Metro TV, Net2 TV, GH1 TV, City TV, TV3, Wuntumi TV, Asasi Radio, Asempa FM, Kesben Television, Happy FM, Afima FM, Home Base Television, Bright TV, Ago 96.9 FM, Anansi Radio, Bosome FM, Ofi FM, ETV, YFM, any stations a whole door I organ has a F1 Live. Baby, I don't know. So was in the Sebi and Argentina as Habri and Ka Otto and Sao Baby, I wanna made him Sabbath also. Na mama yet the Akasamuna bro. Me who a brandy be your share and tomato dear short sleeve, Ewa Hasi, them so no bedi kind. Na Paltoyamfa Akasamuno, Emma Openi Bako. Yamfa Akasamuno Penny Bako. Tibefia say with you, Bako, Mienu, Miensa, any and 9. Enti Openi Patro for Mike and start to feature my opening Patro body and no watch Rebia, Ufi, na Argentina and Asim Disebi or na Odiato impending for any sending impending for a day and EDA Amaye Nani Edin Comono, Argentina Yabejatum, and EDA new boo, and I was a fast up and so. Otra baby any say Kodia, I know what the auto supreme say, Mindumo Mike and baby a one. So Penny Patro Casa.
Good afternoon. Patro Mepesa Meka Chigaka.
Patro Fro saying,
the friend Dr. Isaac Osafo Champon.
Dr. Isaac Osafo, but Dr. America Tanani, Patro Casa. Dr. Isaac
Osafo Champon.
Osafo Champon.
I am the same, Manasa Quenya in Amis Metramadi e-levy. And he said, e-levy, the discussion is near the Nano, or Mima Junimudia, a idea a rebel minor. But issues in Kitty on ma,
sɛnea mpanimfoɔ kyerɛkyerɛ mu no medwene sɛ ne kwan so ano no meboro mpanimfoɔ a wɔha no mu especially honorable Hen Oforiata sɛ ɔkaa sɛ tax tua wɔ hɔ yi 77 mpɛ aduasa ɛyɛ ya but mepɛ sɛ mede to dwa sɛ dekɔdi pɔte nti a me e-levy m'ani gye ho paa ne sɛ yɛwɔ nkurɔfoɔ bi wɔ ɔman yi mu a artisans in particular carpenterfoɔ masonfoɔ electricians ɔmo bɛbɔ wo dan so ma wo adwuma no ɔmo bɛyɛ biribiara ma wo nso tax a wɔmo tua no 77 mpɛ aduasa wonhunu direct tax a yɛtua eti wɔn adwene mu no e-levy no even though ɛbɛma nkurɔfoɔ bi ɔmo tua direct taxes already no ɔmo bɛsɛn tua bi no ba saafoɔ ne nnɔɔso nti no nefoa so na mmom suggestions wei na mepɛ sɛ nka mede to dwa sɛ aban bɛtumi a anka yɛbɛnya a separate account yɛ a e-levy sika a ɛreba no ɛno hɔ nom na ɛbɛkɔ ne yɛhunu sɛ ebi a bosome biara no saa sika yi no na nkɔnkɔfra the consolidated fund a ebi a ɔmbɛyi sika no sɛ ahokyɛ bi aba baabi nti yɛde kɔ akɔyɛ biribi foforɔ na mmom no yɛhu sɛ saa futuo yi sika egu mu ni na sɛ ɛba ne sɛ ɔsi yɛyɛ biribi a yɛde yɛn nsa kɔbɔ mu a na yɛde yɛn ne yɛde yɛ na second suggestion nso ne sɛ yɛ possible a nka bosome mmiɛnsa biara aban ɛmma yɛnhunu e-levy sika no a yɛagyegyeɛ no dodoɔ a yɛnya ne dwumadeɛ a aban de sika no ayɔ nti mefa ne sɛ kwan na wɔse ɔde yɛ a akwan a yɛde ayɛ ni it will be on the ground for people to appreciate it sɛ bi a ɛyɛ nneɛma a ɛwɔ nkrataa so ɔmayɛ sɛ ɔmde bɛyɛ no ɛno ni a yɛbɛhunu na sɛ ɛne yɛtuaeɛ no na yɛde yɛ ni na ne korakoraa no mehu sɛ yɛse ɔmo ɛtua 100 Ghana cedis no sɛ wo transfer te sɛ sika bɛ ɛduru 100 a wontua hwee sɛ yɛ possible a anka ɛbitumi send sika as much as 3,000 10,000 ɛwɔ mobile money so nti ɛbɛtumi nso aba ne sɛ bi a yɛbɛtumi ama sika no ɛdu mpɛmpɛnsoɔ bi a saa level no yɛnkyagye nkɔ biom sɛnea ɛbɛyɛ a anka obi a ɔtubi sɛne bɛyɛ 10,000 a ɔnkɔnkotua saa 1.5 na ɔmfrɛ sɛ sika no yɛ bebree ma no
mate wasɛm na sɛ mpatɔ mmeɛmmɔ nsɛm ma no mommeɛmmɔ nsɛm ma no ɔse ɔno adi kan ɔno deɛ ɔsusu sɛ asɛmpa mmom ɛnka ɔsusu sɛ aberɛ bia no yɛmbu ho akontaa sɛ mpo no yɛbɛnya account foforɔ bi na nkɔ consolidated fund mu a yɛmfɛngu mɛma mpanimfoɔ akyerɛ sɛ mmara ma ho kwan sɛ ɛnyɛ ne saa a ɔsan so kyerɛ sɛ nka bosome mmiɛnsa biara no yɛmbu ho akontaa na mpo ɛkɔ soro no nka de abroni frɛ no cap anaa threshold bi bɛwɔ hɔ anka yɛde aka mpamkyɛ mode akasamu no ama nipa ɔtɔ so mmienu anaa ɔpani a akasamu no wɔ hɔ mpakyɛ ɔkasa yɛni bere yɛhwɛ wɔ tv ne radio ahodoɔ so nti mpakyɛ mpamkyɛ ne microphone no wɔ fam kakra
yɛfrɛ me Ama Buche
Ama
Buche
mpatɔ yɛ dɛ adwuma
wɔ Ghana Library Authority
Ghana Library Authority
Tewu of TUC
Tewu okay
yes me so every say e-levy ne ɛyɛ na nkampɛ sɛ my suggestion is sɛ nka 100 cedis no which is meant for those at the let's say the poorest level let's raise it from between 300 to 500 it's not say oh say young person bebree ɛwɔ school we want to send them 200 or 300 for them also be paying 1 or 2 emergencies that will crop up. So I'm suggesting that let's raise this from 100 between 300 to 500.
I'm out to make kind of cheek a crabby mammy, Mr. Anna, we treating yet.
Maybe say, yeah, raise 100 now, yeah, them let's say based for those at the grassroots car. Yeah, raising no.
Embra saying
between 3 to 500.
Between 3 to 500.
Yes.
I'm a butcher, Tewu. Pacho Matimida was say. Akasamuni and Fanny Porto, me and San Femano. Na Yenti Nasem. Pacho say abutre. Tuntum way. I was almost sanitizing. Timomo sanitizing, we say. They are sanitizing Pacho issue. Now, Pacho Casa.
The Pacho, your friend, Kwame Bafo.
Kwame Bafo, Kwame Pacho, Juma.
Me a driver.
We a driver. Pacho, it's you.
Me Casa, me free. I just saw Abogri or Efo. Koforidria. Na me moment there, the American is saying, he love you know, and Kabe boying. na adeɛ baako a ɛha me baako ne sɛ Ghana yɛka sɛ saa adeɛ wei bɛboa yɛ a na yɛde ayɛ amanyɔsɛm yɛde yɛ amanyɔsɛm a MPP foɔ sɔre a wɔn sɛ NDC foɔ deɛ ne nyɛ NDC foɔ sɔre a wɔsɛ MPP foɔ deɛ ne nyɛ na yɛwura baako a wafi mu na memfa ne kransie President Mills wɔde VAT ɛbae na VAT na ɔde baeɛ no asɛm a yɛkae ne sɛ na MPP foɔ sɛ VAT ne nyɛ ɛbɛha yɛ adwene ɛbɛha wɔn mu sei ɛnso so VAT no baeɛ no MPP baeɛ no wɔantwam ɔtoa so enti sɛ VAT no bae na wɔtumi aba na watoa so deɛ a sɛ saa e-levy so ba a daakye ankwama bia NDC foɔ so ba so a wɔn sɛ ɛnyɛ o wɔn mfoa so ɛnso nyɛ adeɛ a saa adeɛ wei ba a wɔn bɛtwam enti mesrɛ yɛn nyinaa yɛ mmoa na sɛ yɛboa na sɛ saa e-levy ba na sɛ ɛbɛtumi aboa na yɛ manom yɛ nuanom obiara obihia adwuma ne adeɛ tumi aboa deɛ a yɛmfoa so na yɛmmoa na asɛm baako ha me ne sɛ yɛwura abambebaaben ɔse ɔbɛgye saa adeɛ ɔyɛ atom nti ɔretu kwan akɔhwɛ ne ho yareɛ nti yɛsrɛ no ɔntena ase ne anyi ntom na ewie a wakɔ masɛm
Kwame ɔyɛ driver agyi so a wo se wo de ɔgye tum na emu politics no na yɛnyae owura bagbe ni ha na emu akwantuo no otu yɛntumi nka nsi so dua sɛ ɔbɛgye atom nti na ɔyɛ ne saa no de yɛntumi nka ne saa yɛhwɛm ne yɛnka ɔman ne ho asɛm na sɛnea wɔaka yɛmfa politics no ɛnto nkyɛn yɛbɛgye adwenkyerɛ mmienu na mama mpanimfoɔ ayi ano pakyɛ ɔpani okura kasamu no hwan na yɛkɔ ne hɔ
yes
ɔpani okura kasamu no hwan na yɛkɔ ne hɔ
yɛfɛ me nana sɛi
nana
kasa fi Koforia dedi kan mɛma mo akɔ aba ɛba honorable baafi pesua so na mayɛ ade paa sɛ mo baayɛ na program papa bɛmɛsrɛ mo sɛ moma twii ni nɔɔso borɔfo no dɔɔso dodo ɛfiri sɛ mefi Accra obi ma ne me sɛ mefa adeɛ kɔma ne mɔda wɔ market ɔbɛbɛpɛ bi ɔna maame ne ka sɛ afei kora de abrɛ wo ne borɔfo akɛseɛ yɛhia mo nyɛ tumi hyɛ ɛtɛli na da wontumi ana mehu sɛ na madam ɛsla na na ɛwɔ so ana sɛ maame adeɛ ɔnyɛ bɛyɛ ade papa tumi ka na mede kaa speed na mede baeɛ lucky enough bɛdu yɛ ana na madam so de adeɛ no akɔtwi ɛti mɛsrɛ mo adeɛ na moyɛ no ɛho hia nano yi a honorable Erikopoku na ɔyɛ press conference twi na ɔka ɔkyerɛ mu ɛtu MPP foɔ so a mayɛ no borɔfo a market foɔ esu yɛn nso na etua tax no wokɔ market a adwadifoɔ na etua tax no wɔn ho dɛm ekyirɛ no nipa dodoɔ sɛbi wɔn wɔn nim adeɛ no kakraa bi wɔn nso te adeɛ n'ase na yɛn te aseɛ no dodoɔ no na nkɔ sukuu nkɔ akyire.
na sɛ yɛda wase yɛte aseɛ na nkɔmɔ nankasa wɔ ho biribi anaa.
o se
nkɔmɔ nankasa wɔ ho asɛm bi anaa.
deɛ na ɔka ne sɛ mɛsirɛ mo sisi yɛ ano sɛdeɛ adeɛ no kɔ no akamo de bɛma MPs no. Na nka ɔpɛsua so no na wɔn akɔ na ɔkyerɛkyerɛ mu ɛma nkurɔfoɔ ate aseɛ yie because recently honorable baafi yɛ town hall meeting bi ɔkokɔ mmea ma adeɛ no yɛ fine eti kamo bɛyɛ ne saa na nka MPs no ɔkɔ ne pɛsua so a na ɔorganize na wakyerɛ mu yie masɛm ano no meda wase
na sɛ maame nka biribi kakra bi nkyerɛ wo ɛnɛ mpanimfoɔ akasa nyinaa ɔno aba afanyɔ maake ɔka afante honorable Eslowosu ɔka no borɔfo ka ne twi sanse TV stations ne bebree fa no borɔfo me a megyina ha yi borɔfo ne fanti nyinaa maka bi finance minister so sɛ na mekae no owie na ɔbɛbɔ ne tɔfo a ɔno so bɛkyerɛ n'asɛm ne nyinaa tɔfa mu otwi MPs so bebree ago MPs bebree a mohu wɔn wɔ ha yi deɛ awoka no ɛno ana ɔmoyɛ ɔmo kɔ aprɔbɔ ɛkyerɛkyerɛ mu wɔ baabi a ɔwɔ sɛ ɔmo kyerɛ mu nyinaa ti wasɛm no yɛate na so pɛm pakyɛ ɔmɛfa deɛ twa toɔ mmienu na mama mpanimfoɔ ayi ano ɔpani a wokura kasa mu tuntum no wobɛkasa ansa na deɛ okura kɔkɔɔ no akasa pakyɛ ɔkasa
yo mpakyɛ yɛfrɛ me Seth Agyei Kwabi
Seth dɛ adwuma na ɔyɛ
meyɛ teacher ni
Seth ɔyɛ teacher Seth yɛtie o
yo masɛm ne sɛ ɛtoɔ deɛ wontumi ntena ma mu ka sɛ wontua toɔ ɛtoɔ deɛ yɛ yɛnim sɛ no ne yɛde kyerɛ man but deɛ hadwen ne sɛ da biara yɛnsi obi akɔdi sika for example auditor general report say 12 billion ayera but we are chasing 7 billion da bɛn ne yɛbɛda nyane wɔ Ghana ha yɛbɛte sɛ obi akɔdi Ghana sika na yɛde na kɔgyina court abua no fɔ de na kɔtom anaasɛ yɛagye sika no afiri no hɔ it is alleged for inkojina court ho ma assembly nye foolish case the tosu mienu does it mean say ye all former sector etua tax rodo no e-levy bay ye di nipa bi be ka ho amomatua ye nso ye betua more ana ye betie de so
me pa cho mate de twa to meko oba na okura microphone kokko na sana ba minister pa cho orura said teacher say person o tia say watete no from say auditor general say 12 billion ayira na 12 billion ayira de na nkoje no na wo beji 7 billion wo e-levy mu pa cho no e bepe anu yie kakra e wo wankasa ho directly ansana edikan no ago ansana edikan no emrama ho kwan say yen create account for from fenkotumu ana ena nkuntabuo adwenkyerɛ baako ne sɛ nka bɛyɛ bosome miɛnsa bia yɛmbu ho akontaa na obi ɛho sɛ ampa sempo ana teku ana dama na ɛgyeeɛ na wei ni ɛda ɛho adwuma mene sɛ mɛba wo hɔ nkae ne deɛ yɛ adwenkyerɛ nti mmienu wei mɛba wo hɔ abɛgye adwenkyerɛ mpakyɛ deɛ twa toɔ na maba minister hɔ
mpanimfoɔ mema mo nyinaa adwo masɛm baako a mepɛ sɛ meka ne sɛ saa adeɛ wei ɛyɛ adeɛ papapaa na mepɛ sɛ mehu sɛ nti a Montini anya town hall meetings yi ansana opanyin di akọ na asan abey. Ebia ne education die. Mpamocho mambo mi di ya fra me Joyce Yosinjan. Me a retired teacher. Bibi wo ho na ya papa say ya nim say CST bay. There was so much opposition. Inti bibi papa say ba na was mudi kan ema ya asefo no ya ti ase na yen ya tumi kasai anka ya tumi a convince nkrofo ebi kranka ye be push no ama mo adwuma ayemre enti no ya sra se bibi papa say ba mo famra bottom no na yen starting fear eho ansa na mo de kodu empanimfo mu afei ne amenti ase bi oni say ade a ne yesi ye de beboa road fund yen wie ye na tole wa aman mu nyina mo gya sa sika sampa at least you can come one by 1 kilometer of road ye giant inti say way an ye year mesre bisa say
near the
potol
but ya say me mo say ma mo ebisa nsem atra dwen nyina meto safre honorable minister responsible for finance na wa boa ye ma yaje anu yie e won semfo edikan be ye wi a mesa ba mo ho ye be ne mprensa ye wi a mesa ba mo ho na maje adwenkyerɛ ne nsɛm bisa minister de di kan pa ne sɛ emra be ma ho kwan ma ye bi account ago ne nkoto mu a enko consolidated fund mu ana na adwenkyerɛ ba ko no sɛ nka bosumi miensa bia e betumi abu ho akonta sɛ sei ne enya sei ne de aya ana nka ne adwenkyerɛ ne mom dia etwa to mienu no sef a o ye teacher say what is 12 billion ayira ne no auditor general kan ye na kyerɛ sɛ no kora na sɛ eye bia de auditor general edike hu ni mfiti ase afna de akosoro nyesef esoro ansa na de abo please am pajon ka otumi ya no kakrama ya kebere mo friends and monchia minister responsible for finance
yo medasio obakasa Dr. Isaac and start say young artisans num own tiafe enti ono de yɛnhwɛ wɔn na make sure sɛ wɔbɛtua na wei bɛka wɔn na dɔk ade a sɛ mepɛ sɛ mekyerɛ wo no nso sɛ ade yɛde Ghana card foɔ no ɛkɔma GRA na sɛ GRA wɔn wɔ adeɛ tax identification numbers bɛyɛ 5.5 million ɛne yɛde Ghana card the database yi kɔma wɔn to another 15.5 million enti yɛhwɛ mu no dɔk 60,000 doctors and lawyers and architects and whatever own to your pay. In the new masons near artisans and well, yeah, Casa P or radio so near, I don't know. I want to make chain or la born in a cantonment, no. Once own to ya. And I want to come to a muted. NTU, e-levy, send you by digitalization. Vice President and Minister of Communication, a bit much yen sɛnea ɛbɛyɛ a wobɛhu nea obiara yɛ. It's very easy to talk about the artisans and masons. Now, once we say, yeah, if you are in Zambia, the moment you are there, then we'll be able to account for them and do that. I think the issue of separate accounts, consolidated account, any BBA, doing what is about. I think what is really in the end key. Okay, me call around the NIPA kind and accountability on a quarterly basis, and I think that should be done. In here, and threshold, I think those will be administrative issues. If we say, oh, start a new taxa, NIPA people say, on bed dodge any day, and due to me whom year, then you adjust the tax to be able to do that. And now because is it Amabuchi? Or can I say you move at the exemption of 300 CDs and could do 300, 500. And the current say 100 CD no. Sebi, say beer, Bosumi beer, was salary and now says sky won't same no. 3,000. And if you try on 3,000, no, I just sure say a dose, sir. Now 300 to 500, no, so Serbia, now over to me. Now you're in the daily, it won't affect you. There's a chance to avoid the tax. And I am driver, is it Kwame? Kwame in speaker who has and the engine I bomb pie man and send a bear Neho Betonum and send our kind as taxes idiot opposition Becca said one pay and so on bar own chum and continue send a bear Ibineska Yadibaye a Juma as a saying. Now, set Auditor General Auditor General report, no, because it was 12.2 billion, and one say IRA. But true to the matter, and yet, so we share report now. What to me, who said 10 billion out of that are collections that are going on for loans and collections that GRA is also continuing. Now, GRA numbers, so they sometimes penalty, they multiply it by 3. And two virgins as it can be sumho and a young of fire, and yes, sir. But still, no more be what, as I said, yeah, encourage, send a bayer, give it to me, are collected. And then another 1.8 billion was what they term irregularities. To say, via MMDC. Etua OB 300 CDs and do not fill the correct papers. And yes, Sikana year reporting. Into Oshemua, you won't get that alarmed. Into Sika Yefeno, a Sika here. You tear taxes, no. And I was na you levy idiot. Say, Baby, how? Nasasa, why wouldn't him say? You call baby to sell London this within the idea. One tax rate probably 55 or 60%. And there's always a time to start. You start 11 year. Once 1 year Juma Yunhuno. When you now be bannetinum. Now one so on which year will be a plea. Until Joyce and so say, Bibi Papa say, I don't know, I'm mantum. When I was here, not your bantam. Now, told booth are somewhere okay. You and pay million, 78 million. And we are going to lose from that. And the question really for us is, say, what's the trotro or how move the heat and all of that, And I say, Nadi Krempo, as a sea giant. Then a bear, sorry, Juma, Enyafina, watching traffic move for another hour or so. You know, any bibia a fata. Enti onyamibwa E-levy go through. Na real roads are akwesi person of build the highways no and no na fe there you begin say yeah. In the tolls no dey beba but a 6-lane highway akwesi so be sia man ansan yakọ. Then e be ya trot sem ni adi montra kwan mu abre na you go into chicho ni ade ni ejaina your life and so higher better. And to me just say the kojo I can't even
Minister, I say you better call for second round of questions. You better 3 round of questions. But I say KTU Council Chair Professor Pori I will say opese or charge drink a crap. But I say Prof who I say no question opese or charge drink. But mami una yemfa microphone in mouth. Prof I say nti you be fear say or Prof na mafa 9 account mafa 9 account na yetimi etio manu dey. Prof I my etio
I can be even where the self and Chirko Hina, what can be a camera? Mr. Abano said, on share MPs, DCs, and NCC, Kitty, na one more entry at the Muyes, and near me Bahano. Matthias, yes, and said, the Biana and Tokwawo radio soon. If the NCC is one of their jobs. And now, this is, and yes, what you want to do, so be a year back, when you have 5 minutes to go for stress, because Yaman and the we are crashing, and Matthias here more than near a radio soon, as someone Mr. Mano. Because yes, I know, won't you, people say, yeah, and this was a young man free, yet to me can be papa, as if you are not be any baby. It is our arms of government now. One who said, Obama, Ademudia, one the Bayo Edumano. Now one much better crossing. Now Obia Atias, Medasi.
Medasi pa. Pachopeni Ukraka Semu, if it's a senior question, Kakranka, Benim Hasi, Kakramami, and Kababuami. If Penny 4 Nafa microphone mom, 90 almost 1 month.
Hello.
Pachopeni, I'm in tears of you.
If I'm your friend, Reverend Dr. Michael Usutego. Mestre, senior.
Reverend Tego.
Never try. Senior Prof. Kayano. Menene ya drink. Kaye ya sofu ni say. Enipa dodo na hye yase. Entinka mesre. Se adepa se badia. Ka yemfra sofu ni nyina. Ni yenye obi nkyire yemu. Na yenti ase ye na yenso yetimi kwa. Ye pirichi kura wie ni Yusuf minutes. Ni yetimi di kyire members me gidi se ebeko. Medamasi.
Medasi. So for kind na maka Bible mu Christocracy yemfa Caesar de ma they are a Caesar. There is a taught to no crampo no. If you are say Bible mu enyende. But opani bi share blue shirt beret tie. Yenko no na after mami okra mic ni aba penny. Mami, but you tell. Yes, mami okra mic no.
Yo medasi.
Una to so me.
Me pacho your friend me Margaret Mr. Market woman. Me sre mo me so masam kakra de say adie ya aban dia bai me so na menti ase kura e na me ba ha na mwakyerechirem na mwate ase eti say ya nyire ye ho na ye kọ IMF ya wa hwe ye kura na ye akọka kire ye say ye nkọji homosexual too eti say ye nsa akọhye omanu ye ni hweka na emom ni amensira kakra ne sadie bia wo start ya ye kakra eti say ye me ye kọnkran kọfa ne ama Meja and cry for no drum ye mobile money in ye near the mawum. Eti yadaroma ye triaha na udi man ye or no to the back you know better triasos. Etika munya di bibi kakrama ye. Did ye jitum pa? It is a yesro see a backwas IMF or tranquil yesro yako catcher ye say muni homosexual too. And yes, or yes, that's what I know. Eti the obeka be as I say this so. Eti no yempe eti mrana mudi abane de ni se na menti ase enso na me ba ha no mate ase eti mi ko dwa aso me de ko na ebom yesra mo se mudi ye start ka munye bibi kakra ma yen Madisra no
no. Minister Pachoka merchant accounts mamenom nuanom ma edididwa merchant accounts omo so betua to ni bia na so omo de no mo di kan yen se merchant account no omo de no enka ho bi obeyi no ama opani ba kokura na fi be wo ha sei na magia no ye yes opani
honorable medase your friend me honorable Charles Edu Asino me elected assembly member me sign the national president for Ghana Association of Assembly Members. Honorable
President of Ghana Association of Assembly
Members.
Pacho
yi levy adepa na nya ye hu ni say approach na ye de ade no na emwa na me ma me ni kasa no o ka say anka ye mfa fi soro ne mo ye fa fi ase downward approach no eno betimi aboa me hu ni say yen assembly members no your electoral area be bia Ghana ha be bia eti with this na me papa ne ka say yema MCs no kwan a omo betimi aye adwuma no say more resource yen assembly members na esa ne say your electoral area bia no you be free community meetings, town hall meetings like this, and the community members will be present. Say ne be ya ye betimi a church muye. And what we need from leadership and say Boba mind a little education on this yield levy and any other government initiative via or the Bebano. Say, Moma in that education, we, the assembly members who are on the grassroots now, you bet me I empower it more than say, you better the top approach. And at the Biano, so no, your information be a Bema Biano, you defa NCA Brofono, any advertisement or radio, so no, I am Pimpino, and Quasania, yeah, you bet my friend Nipanano 101. Na yene na kasa because o kasi o de kofa Adum FM nipa dodo ahina etie Adum FM obi wo ha that time untie Adum FM o tie different radio sa advert na koso Adum FM onti ana se koso UTV a o hwe UTV o hwe ebia City TV e ti mo fanfa yen assembly members we are the grassroots. Thank you very much.
Me pacho yate openi we dey me so man bi sa wo fo aso ana wo mfo aso
me fo aso
ene pacho che me po bi o mfo aso
so
far as obi oje mic no for aso nanso me po bi on the for aso kra obi on for aso kra na mo fa mic ne ma no me enti ono so na sem boko e pese ete a de enti aban pani fo aba ni se e pese ete adwen ahodo no se me pa cho fa mic ne ma obi a o se ono for aso no ono so nkire na adwen na enye so omo afo aso nko adwen na yetie.
Yo, your friend me.
Ago.
But
I won't force on our own force.
Me forso, and I mean some forso.
Maybe
I have to be some. But me forso.
Opening Sabotre. Nipa be do a decay casano. Obia forso. Ye pobi on one forso, nay tie or no sooner denture. Me and for Mike and money for wet train or so. Openi, what's the one for us? Ameboa. And it's the entire one for us. The entire one at Casafoni Nanya drink.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon. But you're frozen.
Benjamin Darko, I'm a student. My tree is not really that good, so I'll communicate purely in English. I have some. Initially, I wrote down 10 questions, but I'll narrow it down to just 4. My first question is... Benjamin.
Okay, take your time. Are you one of the persons who disagrees with the EF?
Yes, please.
So explain to us why you disagree, what you disagree with, so that it can be responded to.
I'm explaining in the form of questions. The
Go
first
ahead.
question is, how do we categorize the e-levy? Is it another income tax, a capital tax, a sales tax, a payment tax, or all of the above? However, one avoids this tax when they opt for cash payment. That is the first question. The second one is, corruption is a major problem that only receives lip service in Ghana. The Auditor General indicates that about 12 billion cedis remain unaccounted for over the last few years.
Ago. Ben, Go ahead, we're listening. And then
over the last few years, why e-levy only rakes in 6.9 billion rather than recovering 12 billion? So why are we not going after the monies that have been lost due to corrupt acts?
And the third
question is, proceeds from e-levy are pegged towards road and transportation development, youth employment, security, and the growth of the IT infrastructure in the state. The question is, what happens to previously earmarked levies? Communication tax, sanitation levy, HESLA. How have they improved their earmarked sectors? What is the guarantee that e-levy will be used for its intended purpose?
Thank you, Ben.
The
Ben,
2021
thank you.
population...
Ben, it's okay. Thank you. You gave us 3. I deliberately sought for you, but you gave us 3. Can we get... Hello? Gentleman in the jacket, please. You also Chairman, please, go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, my name is John Ewua, the CEO of Ghana Association of Banks. Since the bill was laid in Parliament and the discussions have been ongoing, as a trade body, we've been engaging with the minister and his team. I think the very final engagement was just last Monday, where we had a confirmation that a person-to-person bank transfers will not be in scope for the levy. But during the minister's presentation, I saw that the scoped-in services included person-to-person bank transfers. I just need a confirmation whether there's going to be a subsequent amendment that will factor in the agreement that the minister had with the banking industry. What was agreed was that the minister will maintain an administrative right or privilege to reintroduce or scope in person-to-person bank transfer in the event that following the implementation of e-levy, there is a significant platform shift from the Momo platform to the banking industry. And we agree with the minister on that. So we just believe that, or we are re-emphasizing the agreement we had with the ministry that the person-to-person bank transfers should be scoped out. Thank you very much.
John Ewua, Chief Executive of Association of Bankers. Thank you very much for joining us and for the thoughts that you have shared with us. Minister, I'm going to invite you to respond to these ones, and then I'll come for the very final batch. So Mr. John Ewua and the Bankers Association want clarity on the person-to-person transfer exemption. Benjamin wanted some guarantees. He says he's opposed to it because he's not sure what guarantees we can give that the money will be used for the purpose. And then I think the other comments were requests that other groups should be factored into the education. Minister.
Thank you very much indeed. John, I think you should rest assured about the discussions that we had. Benjamin, you know, the issue for me, Benjamin, is that we should really think very holistically. Benjamin, I'm addressing your question. John, I think I've answered yours. But Benjamin, I have 3 or 4 questions here. Just what type of tax it is, whether it's income, capital, or whatever. And then the last 2 years, corruption and the Auditor General's report. Already, and then the proceeds from other earmarked funds, and I will say what type of guarantee do we have. I think those are all fair questions, but honestly, if you look at the enormity of the problems we have to move to another level. And I think you need to concede that the economy is changing towards virtual economy, e-commerce economy, and that tax handle should be brought into, our arsenal of taxes that are required. Guarantees that we have, was what somebody suggested, that we have these quarterly reporting mechanisms, and that would be helpful. And it's helpful for all sorts of things. The way you spoke English, I imagine that you are also quite familiar with our macro fiscal numbers. When you talk about other earmark numbers, and you know that we are running a budget deficit, you know that the impact of the COVID was literally about 25 billion. How does a country support that type of contraction in its economy? You also know that compared to other West African or African countries, Ghana, even at this point, was able to eke a positive growth rate. You know what we did during the COVID time that no other African country did. We have about 300,000 people that died on the continent. Ghana was 1,379. So you need to give credit where credit is due and be able to advise yourself as to the integrity of the numbers and what that means to you when you are doing your analysis. And where there's praise, there should be. Where there's caution, there should be. So issues of quarterly reporting to encourage transparency is what matters. Anything I'm starting at the end of the cancer, Kwan Honoma Yefe. Muka Bruchia, Namaniaji, Unim taxes I won't hear, Intia, Oko Hoya Festano. Now about Chrome dear, 1% and unnecessary also dream. At the Obaka Charles and Margaret, and so the issue of a gradual approach to the taxes. And only Yate, as I say, but I mean, for a can't say if you are never yet dodo any other, and I mean, so you go around that yet that same assembly on cano. Internet, your name. A friend saying, telcos no kokaye, then you pay one day no back for more. Now you relieve citizens. Now so sikai here, you debay a juma ya kaya no say employment any and debt infrastructure no. Na still and saka, then you pay you bet me a juma no. Margaret and Suka say something a little bit more gradual. Now, Margaret, ABI, as I only Mr. Benjamin Darko, and so Casa. And now, what you say, I am a Fadiano, and you BBS here, Kohopra, into no can't a technical no matter what type of tax in idea on drink near Beba, ABC, the co IMF. And also, now BB will also a friend of merchant accounts. There's a merchant account no register of GRA, not just no, you are exempt from it because now they have the capacity on between attract Sika once a year. And going through the merchant account, you become part of the formal economy and you also get exempted from that. Minister.
Yedi nkomodi no eba ewiye yedi bisa anadwentra etapo enan ene bewie medical fa ba ko yedi krata abrem yesi Dr. Isaac Asare ne kosa ne se 1.75 no ebeba be ka dia telcos no eje deda no ho ana menim se mo kyerem but communications minister mesra so obeba na oba be kyerem se 1.75 no eba be ka be 2% na telcos no deda no mo je no ho ana and our telcos need no be free ho. The communications minister me from Wabi Yano. Openi pacho wo kasa wie na obema ye wa he kasa. Na nke ama ye nuano mo mba mienu eso akasa. Na afie de nkomode na bewie. Yemfa wo fiase.
Yo, medindi Dr. Samuel Amponsa. I'm a management consultant and I'm a reverend minister as well. Media no ye asembisa ne sanya adwenkyere. I believe strongly say Ghanaians are discerning people. But the policy be say ba na ya intimi anchromu year. Eventually the opposition party will take over the argument. Na obi ka say ye betimi ma parliamentarians are communicating the change to the people. But we know, sir, we have 50% share in the parliament. So eventually, when you want to communicate this message to the people, you are targeting 50%. And the communication minister, if there's any communication channels or distributive channels via what they are talking say how is she going to drive this communication thing to the people of Ghana? Now, say if there are any strategies via media to Kwemwa, even you say your parliamentarians know even your basic schools in the crowd. When the student is empowered, it means that they be Ghana for rejecting any proposal we bring on board.
Hello.
Yeah. If I'm a Prince Kofi Ban areas, Kewo, and Niponiech. I'm a grassroots communicator. I am important for a Chinyabia Abba was at 11 home. And my friend name penny for a Jayanko school near the war from a Yantiasian. Normally, as mammy send me maybe for Penny and Kata. I mean, family. Dear, a Tiani say, how much less I mean, Bisa say. Yes, so sending mobile money, dear, better. Miss I say, Sikadu Dwahi, and only Pani Sandia. Mubetimiati. Na, dear Mubetimiatino. Do say, and I'm betting at free size canisol. And no pay any here. Sir, 20% in 7.5% no one month. To me, Mr. Sika, actual Sika. Okay. I'm betting a free so I'm making control.
Me pacho ya te da sipa. Na pacho ufi ina buy openi. Ufi ina buy. Pacho mate ya da se. Me pacho ye pe mai chato mienu. E mai chato mienu. Me ko bi na man ka bi de enye mai chato mienu. Yenya ma eno ne pese tie. Oba ba ku jina ha se ana pamcho mo fa kasemu no mo oba no wa ha no. Pamcho mo fa kasemu no mo oba no mesre mo mo fa mo oba no. Na yentie no. Mesre mo ani dem. Na ye wi a oba bi ama ne nsa so nti opani ye wi a oba
Me pacho ya feme fia pokuya mikasafi afima FM okoferidia ensem no yate ase ya kirekire mu atie akire yatie fo bebre na ena no pay question obi bisa me na me nso me ba bisa mo no se me send sika 1000 cedis ama onabo kwadwo opon kroma na se me pese wo yi ni 1000 cedis a se me de 10 cedis eto so se de be ya bra kwadwo betimi ayi 1000 pepepe. Mensu a mensan ni sika no ye beti me 10 cedis ebe 20 Ghana which is 2% and a telcos in the question say afi bia no ana bosumi miensa bosumi nsia bia no sika ahe and a 2% na telcos ne te no omodema aban ahe ne kom na bia unso adenti na aban no enti sa tax yi emfi telcos ne ho because omo na nya sika ni bebre ebia me mama akosua foreign se bedi afia ansa na mama ne 10 million enti sa afene na me ntani sika mama e beti sa tax na fiso a o my Ghana ye nkwa ye nim wo mpuntunwa mu ana me da ase
her question is about how much revenue does the state make from the telco charges and why are we not going that route as against this one madam
wacha Mr. Medi Florence Caesar Afima FM ha em say before say ye be kokodi bronya no ye say honorable minister finance minister we modified E11 no and was submit a parliament into say misani say ade na ba ya boegu ya ko modify ya san de parliament nti we ya ye ni ajaje ntre no na ya san koye modification say de parliament ana say ye kire mo kire Ghana for say mo po ye be nti mo nti ase.
That's it. So what is the impact of this town hall meeting on the processes in Parliament? Openi me de won e be wie yenkomodi. But for saying
the friend Abraham Damte Lincoln.
Abraham.
I'm a public servant.
Okay, Abraham, you too.
Na mesre na maka se thought there be a policy implementation communication no ya dia how my Ghana. Ohe ilevia a policy ana se bibi ayeye dia dia boa timamufu a o my Ghana mu. Nansem se hu nkomodie no anko te se de na se ko. Enti mesre se yenuanom DCs ene MCs o ha no wo modern answer sa ne me obefa na what use to don broadcast community information system wo empatemo petemo ewum no na won cheche nsem ne mu yie emfa ma omanfo se ne be ya omanfo no beti ase ye tosum yenu a me ka ho ansem ne se telcos no de ye tia no yade a engofo di ho ya yi esan so hwa man bi so a mobile money ewo Kenya free o send dia free o ko receive nso a free and the has said dia na denti na telcos no ebu ye mfa so na ye se wo gisika efi dia o send ho na dia okwa akoyi nso wo gisika fi ho ye be sra ban se wo mso wa ye bia se wo ne o kasa na ba fom onko so anu on kasa se ne be ya de ye tua ewe ye send ne de wonso ko yi a woje no obetimi amana ba fom na boa o ma ne nyina mpuntu
medase momiemo se man nyina ye ho adwentra ya kire town hall meeting. Honorable Communications Minister Pacho na abedi kan ne wi Finance Minister bebo no top amai.
Pacho obi bisa se ye tua li levi no aka de telcos no eje na ani telcos no ye ne won edi enkomo enyansa wo so bebre ema omo a eje eto ewa adwuma na omo ye no omo apne so se ombete so kakra ama manfo ho aharewo sana burden no enka adeswa no na enusmu ha kakra ama ye nyina tie ni omo adi nkomo ama omo ankasa atomo anum tuo se oha nchichemu aduonu enum ombe yi afi charges na omo ema no na omo soso edi aboa ban na yadeswa no ankrankre nyanke ebetua no eso ati enti eho no nkyerɛkyerɛmu a ɛwɔ hɔ no ɛno no obi nso pɛso hu nya percentage 1.75 no ntiaseɛ ti sɛ o sende 300 Ghana ubetua 3 cedis 50 pesos if it's a first 100 no free enti 200 na da so no ɛno so toɔ na ubetua 1.75 no enti 3 cedis 50 pesos na beba beto so amawatua se wo sende 300 Ghana dakroa pato eno no easier to understand ana telcos no omo se yebeka ya me na me free board da wuro se yenye momo hu tax no ache kransa covid no eba da bia meka nanso me company for say there be yenhwe na yemma sa ecosystem enyi ne ntumpon kakra na yehu se de esiko na ba ye ncheye enti me ntumebo kakra covid yi ba ye hwe se de yenyina ye botwi ye yusu ye na ase yenyina ya tiase se eyade a aba betna eyade a yenyina ye be use a ye de bebo ye mbra enti afe wanyi adru nimpani fie so a yebetumi edi sankita ho no afa ho enti ano so ka ho bi ena abasa service charges na telcos no agye no afi so a omutua ho omu de ka omu faso omu aye ni nyina na omu atua eto ewo ho omu tete ho akana enti ho no me na me nso me prese yemfa yema yani enko ho one yema me nya asan kyerɛkyerɛmu ne sɛ yɛde ka wɔn fa so a ɔmo yɛ afimu ne nyinaa ho ne yɛka bom na yɛtwa ɛto a ɛwɔ so ɔmo tua ɛfa ho no ama wɔn na ɔmo nso so atua saa toɔ no nti wohwɛ mu a na ultimately no ɔmo tua saa ɛtoɔ no ɛnyɛ nokorɛ sɛ Kenya uyusu mobile money a untua ɛtoɔ biara ɔmo pɛ sɛ sɛdeɛ yɛn nso so yɛpɛ sɛ yɛma amanfoɔ eyusu sika no ɛwɔ platform ne so nyɛ sɛ ɔkɔ akɔyi sika no afiri afidie no mu na wode akɔdi dwa fɛdi dwa ɛwɔ platform naa so nti yɛde momo ne sɛnde wa men kɔkɔyi sika no ɛno wokɔyi sika no a ɔmbɛtew telcos ne bɛtew nti mfaso a bɛnya wɔ mu no na ɛso ahwere na sɛ woyusu wɔ platform ne so deɛ a ɛka biara ɛni ho Kenya nso saa wokashi out a wotua nti ɛnyɛ nokorɛ sɛ charges biara ni hɔ ɛma mobile money users mpo company bi wɔ man mu ha ɔno nso so woyusu momo na ɔnye wo ho sika nti companies na ɛsono ɔmo nhyehyɛeɛ a ɔmo ayɛ ɛwɔ saa ɛyi no ɛho ɛmsɛ communication ne deɛ information minister obeyi ɛno ano ama yɛn because na ne dwɛsi mu a no ne responsibility na obeye enti I think I've answered.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's invite the minister responsible for finance. Honorable Finance Minister, your responses to the issues that have been raised. May I ask Reverend Dr. Kofi Amfo-Akono to stand by for the closing prayer?
That's it. Thank you very much. Rebecca said, Honorable Esla, I responded to most of the questions by, I think of communication or information there. Kojobeye Amayen. Rebecca said, Ekua, and all can say, Aden Ayan taxi, your friends and telecom companies, Ekua, near a day name, no say, companies there, you have a tax one, and it's a continuing business. Now, I dare say a TSC, I'm a kind from the beginning, say, you move 2.4 million per any tier taxes. In this any our concern, no Becca say, oh, Angel be na 2.4 million for non qua in tier. Now, if I can't do or my immune, as I see in United Trib. As I see in United Trib, in Yanshu, where Obia Betria, Nidia, Sanya Baya or Mai, Beko Yanim. Because for quite yet doing, Sanya Mekaya no. Oshe unemployment the same year, a BBI fata. Necessary in Yesikano, na yetimi train, I'm afraid, send a bear once so, one bejina had to send a agent hay, one year Juma pa 1 year, and as a one best starting with Juma, send a bear stress on public sector employment, a cofom. So we have general unemployment, bay at 13%. And unemployment between the ages of 15 to 35, almost 19.7%. But one every universities near day, our Manchester between the age of 15 and 24, unemployment is 32.8%. Say in dignity, I intimate use one energy near the one, and then I say, as I see a trustle, na yako. Necessary nina yeso ejuma esese yi na yede Ghana ko faako a esese ko enti ye nyina esese rally behind our red gold green, make the Black Star shine, tackle our needs, not depend on the West, as Margaret Khan also our free the market avoid the IMF. If so nimsenia IMF asemi eba enti sika yɛ hwehwɛ 1.75 a yɛkaeɛ no yɛbɛdwen ho sɛnea ɛbɛyɛ a definitely parliament wei deɛ pass within the next few days sɛnea ɛbɛyɛ a yɛbɛtumi ahyɛ adwuma no ase na yɛn nso ɛkɔ forward no ebi a finance wɔn nso ɛsɛ sɛ yɛba na mobɛhu but sometimes yɛkɔ parliament a nɔɔma no ɔmpɛ sɛ nnipa hu ansa na wadu hɔ nti yɛbɛbalance na yɛaconsult yie but mesrɛ mo sɛnea yɛaba ha yɛne mo abɔ nkɔmmɔ yi mo nso monkɔnka nkyerɛ mo namfonom sɛ dwuma pa na yɛpɛ sɛ yɛde yɛbɛreport on a quarterly basis mahu sɛne yɛyusu mo sika no na onyame nhyira yɛn na yɛn nyinaa yɛn build this great and mighty nation. Thank you very much indeed.
Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, yɛdawase. Reverend Dr. Kofi Amfo Akono Pacho Bramin Sabunkum so ase ubebom paya ma nsesia. Enti be amefre the Honorable Alexander Fenyo Malkin Emma no edi aban enim ada Ghana fo nyina monya bre ahwe yen etie yen ene anwumre na wie anwumre wada mo nyina ase amaye. Na senior minister kan no enkomodie no se say a parliament ye di kan de asem na to parliament enim no oman no mu nkomodie ni senior ye fi ase no assemblymen for NCC for MP for ni DC for JD for driver for ni ade nyina ye nyina e beti ehu agum na ya asempa tra adwuma no mo bi atia so Honorable Alexander Fenyo Malkin pacho begina ban enim na anase begina omanfo nyina enim na dase e wa ban di man.
So Kojo, thank you so much. Our dear audience, first, thank you for your patience. You have participated. This is the whole essence of governance. And I must say that kudos to the opposition NDC in Parliament. The opposition has brought governance to your doorstep. I am happy that we hear better late than never. So, our friends in the NDC, thank you. That's the beauty of democracy. But I want to assure you that per the commitment from their side, I'm not sure we are going to exchange brows. And it's not good for our country. So that assurance is to you. Now, in this